I am here today with Eva Marie Everson, and I'm so excited about her new book that has just launched with New Hope Publishers, and it's called The Ornament Keeper, but it's about so much more than Christmas. So I can't wait to get into some discussion on this wonderful novella that's perfect for any time of year. Hi, Eva. It's just wonderful to have you as my guest today,
Thank
and I'm looking
you.
forward to discussing the themes of your book.
Thank
Talk to me
you.
a little bit about how you came to the idea of the Ornament Keeper.
It actually began as an idea for another book several years ago that didn't pan out. Sometimes I think that, especially, the writers who we know, think that because I've had nearly 40 books in print, that if I just spout out an idea, it's automatically accepted. And it wasn't. It was a great idea, but it just, it wasn't the right time for it. And about a year and a half ago, maybe, I'm not really sure when, but New Hope contacted me and said that they would like to relaunch their fiction line, and they would like to start with a Christmas novella, and would I be willing to write it? And did I have any ideas? And so I pondered a few things. I have a file called Book Ideas, and these are basically the ideas that either I never completed, or I sent them out and they were not accepted. So I kind of dusted the old one off and it replaced ornaments with what I had previously, and wrote it out, and they liked it. And then they said, well, do you have like an extended version? And okay. And so I gave them the extended version, and then we were good to go after that.
And this is not your typical light, fluffy, tied up in a bow romance story.
Oh
This
no.
is into like realistic
Yeah.
struggle in relationships, struggles in marriage, struggles with yourself, and getting
Mhm.
over your own ideas of who you are and your own expectations. There's
Yeah.
a lot of really deep themes that are heartwarming in the end, but you struggle together with the characters. What are some things that people might see that would reflect reality in their own lives with regard to expectations?
Well, I'm glad that you said that this is not your typical, this is not a Hallmark, a boy meets girl, girl falls in love with boy, somebody bakes a cookie, snow falls, and then there's a kiss. It's not that typical kind of romance, holiday romance novel. One of my favorite authors, and he began as a Christmas novella book writer, is Richard Paul Evans. I love Richard Paul Evans for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's a fantastic writer. And number two, his last name is Evans and mine is Everson. And so my books are often right next to his on the bookshelves in the bookstore, which I can only imagine maybe helps my book sales. So I really do love his book, and a Christmas Box, it was called. And of course now he's got about a gazillion books out there. But the one thing about the Christmas Box is that it is not, again, it's not the boy meets girl, girl falls in love with boy kind of thing. It's about a struggle that's happening within a family, and how the father is missing Christmas. He's missing the whole point of Christmas because he's so consumed with his work. Well, the Ornament Keeper is much in the same way. Now there is a father who is consumed with his work, but that's not what the book is about. It's about a marriage that has fallen apart after 20 years. And if you looked back over the marriage, you would think there was nothing wrong with it. Everything was good. But there was a root of bitterness that was deep down inside of Felicia, who is the main character, the main female character, that she was completely unaware of. But just like all little seeds that are laying in the ground, if something comes along to water that seed, it will sprout out of the ground. It could be a beautiful flower if it's not the root of bitterness, if it's the root of love or peace or joy or any of those things. But when it is the root of bitterness and unforgiveness, then it feels like kudzu. It grows and it grows and it grows and it takes over. And pretty soon their marriage cannot withstand the choking out of this weed that has come into the garden of their marriage. And so as the book opens, it's the Christmas season. And it's the first time the family, Felicia, her husband Jackson, and their children, Sarah and Travis and Hank, will spend it not as a family together, but as a broken family. It's going to look back over the years that they were together through the ornaments that Jackson gave her as a Christmas gift every year from the first that they married on December the 23rd. And they were just, broke kids. And so he just gave her this cute little ornament in the toe of her stocking. Every year after that, he would repeat that action. So as she's hanging those ornaments on the tree, she is remembering the good moments of their marriage as well as the more trying moments. And it's beginning to unveil for her what went wrong.
Mm-hmm. I love that you describe her as not aware of her own issues. And that's so true for many of us. We don't realize the things that we need to dig deep and uncover and pull out of ourselves to make ourselves better people. It's about work. It's about work inside of ourselves as well as work on our relationships. Because this book, like you said, is not that Hallmark movie where everything goes smoothly and fate draws you together. She and her estranged husband have to work hard on their love relationship. And love is shown as something that's worthy of our work, not just something that happens and falls together. I love that about the Ornament Keeper. It's a beautiful and meaningful piece of literature. It's not, even though it's small, it's a novella, it's still a worthy and lovely work, and it's worth everyone's read. So tell me a little bit about the forgiveness themes in the Ornament Keeper, because those are so important.
Well, like you said, Felicia is not aware that she is so angry. She is not aware of what's causing her to feel the way she feels about her husband and a particular individual. The woman's name is Monica Craig, and they all went to school together. She's known Monica since they were children, but Monica went away to Los Angeles to live right after high school and has never been back. And yet, in some strange way, Monica has been another member of their marriage without her even, conceptualizing that. And I have gotten some email and I've, read some of the reviews. Everybody really, really loves the book, but they get frustrated with Felicia. Oh my gosh, I get so aggravated with her. But I think they get frustrated with her because it reveals to them some things about themselves. We all hold on to things. We shouldn't, but we do. And sometimes these are things that there's no logical reason behind it. So we'll say, well, I don't know why I feel that way about it, but I just do. And we don't look into the why. If Felicia had looked into the why a lot sooner than she did, then the destruction to her marriage would never have happened, and she would have had a stronger marriage all along. Now, I will say this is a Christmas novella, so of course it does have a happy ending. I couldn't leave it with them apart, but they did have to go through a lot. There is that digging in, digging deeper. One of the things that is said to Felicia by a good friend of hers, who also happens to be her boss at work, is, have you ever read the Lord's Prayer? What is the last thing Jesus said in the Lord's Prayer? And Felicia very, laughingly says, amen. So she says, no, go back and read it again. And of course, it's about forgiveness. Jesus was concluding the Lord's Prayer with his disciples by saying, forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. And then it goes into that, lead us not into temptation, which I think is very interesting. But we kind of think, because we've repeated it so many times in church over and over and over, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever, ever. And we tacked on that amen. But what Jesus says right after that is that the same measure that we forgive others, the Father in heaven will forgive us. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's interesting that in the middle of, forgive us, and forgive others is lead us not into temptation. I think that's very interesting. But we forget that. And so her business associate, her boss, her good friend says, you need to go back and read. And it takes her a while to do that because life gets in the way and she forgets about it. And then eventually she picks it up and she reads it. And she realizes that, just like so many of us, we want God to forgive us unconditionally. Don't hold on to anything. Don't remember anything stupid that we've done, any deliberate sin, any non-deliberate sin. But we don't want to extend that same grace to someone else because we would prefer to lick our own wounds and to nurse that anger. And that's only going to make it worse. It's where they say unforgiveness is the poison you pour for someone else and then drink yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's such a
Yeah.
true thing. And
Mhm.
Felicia is also very insecure. And that dates way back before her relationship with her estranged husband. And so
Yes.
she's dealing with this insecurity at the same time denying the insecurity
Yes.
and trying to
Yeah, and
control.
it has to do with, that thing that women do a lot of times is comparing ourselves to others.
Hmm.
So always thinking that Monica Craig is the beautiful one. And that's what I was going to say earlier was she always refers to her as Monica Craig, Monica Craig. And Jackson says to her, why do you do that? Why do you always refer to her by her full name? And she doesn't realize she's doing it. She said, I don't do that. And he goes, yeah, you do. And she comes to realize that, yes, she does, but it has to do with that disdain. But why is it there? Well, in some respects, it's deserved because, Monica was a little bit of a poo-poo head, so
She was
she
very
was one
nice.
of those girls. She was one of those
Mean
mean
girls.
girls in
Yeah.
many respects. Yeah. Um, she flaunted in front of Felicia. And there was always that, am I pretty enough? Am I good enough? Am I this? Am I that? And then when Monica went away, it was kind of like, okay, now I don't have to worry about that. And yet she was still holding on to it.
Mm-hmm.
She was still holding on to what she believed about Jackson and Monica.
Yeah. And Monica Craig actually represented to Felicia her own lack, the things that she doubted about herself. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why she hated her so much and why
Yeah.
she couldn't forgive herself or her husband for something that,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, exactly. I was at a book club last night and they were asking me about, the ending and how it ended and how I made this decision. And I don't want to give it away because I want, your readers to read the book, obviously. But I did have to sit down and go back over everything almost from a psychological standpoint to decide whether or not what Felicia believed to be true had actually happened. I had to lay those two things out, like, okay, if it did happen, then this, and if it didn't happen, then that, and then made the decision to which way to go with that. And I think I made the right decision because I think it made Jackson an even deeper human being.
Mm-hmm.
And it explained a lot of things. So, we writers, sometimes as we think we know where it's going, and then we get toward the end and we realize it's starting to shift and change, and we have to make decisions too.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes the characters decide where the story goes
they
instead of
do.
us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're also a writer because you understand that, the conversation is going on in our ears as we're typing. So, we hear the dialogue that's going on and every so often, I have an idea, I know where this is going, and then every so often one of my characters throws in a line and I go, now wait a minute, that was not in the script. And so that's those moments where we stop and we think, well, that might be a better line. So, we have to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to go in that direction. And 9 times out of 10, I do. I go with my characters.
Yes.
Sometimes I
And
have to
it's
reel
not
them
only
back
got
in.
that psychological depth, but you've also woven it into the beautiful scenery and the background of this lovely Southern rich culture that you've developed here. And you're so good at that. That had to
Thank
be
you.
fun to be able to couch such profound depth in that culture of beautiful, deep, historic meaning.
Yes. I loved writing about their home, all of them, from the studio to the little craftsman to the big Victorian. And this is another theme that you will watch them go from, literally, we can't even afford to have a Christmas tree. We can't afford anything this year. Everything that's in the apartment, with the exception of their bed, is from Goodwill. And the reason the bed isn't because they robbed their piggy bank. Jackson is very tall. He's like 6'6". He's very tall, big guy. They have to have a certain kind of bed for Jackson, but it's just a mattress and box springs. That's all they can afford. And then as life gets better, they move up to a little craftsman. They're happy there, and this is good. But life gets really good, and then they move up to this sprawling Victorian home. But on the outside, everything looks like, hey, it's getting better, it's getting better. We're growing in number. We've had our little girl, Sarah. Now we have a son named Travis. Now 7 years later, we have a son named Hank. Surprise. And yet there is a fissure in the foundation that they don't even know is there. And it's about to start rocking. And it doesn't matter how it looks on the outside, on the inside, it's falling apart.
Yeah, it's as though they have moths in a closet full of beautiful things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
no matter how much they gather, those things that were always going to eat all of that away, there's no amount of wealth or luxury that they can wrap around themselves when inside they are actually impoverished,
Yeah,
especially.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
yeah, especially her. And the group I was with last night, it was all women, and we were. I mean, and I feel the same way. We were all like kind of giggling over Jackson because I did make him just that wonderful, wonderful guy, but he had his faults as well. He was pouring everything into his work. He loved his wife, he loved his kids, but he was pouring everything into his work. And as I was saying just a moment ago, sometimes my characters say things that I don't expect them to say. And it was not planned that he was going to say to her, "Do you think my dad would be proud of me?" And that was really the basis of why he worked as hard as he worked. It wasn't necessarily to make a nice home and a good life for his wife and children, although naturally that is a part of it. But he was inside beating himself up, trying to please a man who had died when he was only 18, 19 years old. And I think a lot of men do that.
yes, I
Whether
think
their
so too.
fathers are dead or alive, I think they do that.
So both men and women, husbands and wives, come
Yeah.
into a marriage with their own insecure baggage.
Yeah.
So his insecurity was, am I proving myself as a man through my work?
Right.
And hers was, am I lovable? Am I beautiful?
Yes.
And am I
Mhm.
worthy of
Yeah.
the grace and the forgiveness that
Mhm.
God wants to give me? She was holding that off by not
Yeah.
believing herself able to receive it. So
Yeah.
that kind of impoverished her, and he was impoverished from receiving
Yeah.
all the blessings he could have had because he was so driven to prove himself as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he said to her when he told her he was going to drop out of college after his dad died, he said, "I'm the only one who can save the business."
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is what if he had just said, shut the business down or sell the business or, but he took that on because he loved his dad so much. He didn't want to see his dad's dream die. So he put his dream on hold and went for his dad's dream. And that's exactly what she had done. She had a dream of having an education. She didn't know what she wanted to do, but she knew she wanted to graduate from college. And then that was interrupted by marriage. And so there is that, this isn't necessarily the way I thought it was going to turn out, what I wanted to do, but I'm making the best of it I can. And I think that's so true for so many of us. We look back, we hit a certain age and we look back and we say, well, I could have, I should have, I could have done this. I should have done that. I do it myself. I think, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I, when I had a chance, why didn't? And you can beat yourself up with that.
Mm.
And the fact is you didn't. And if you can do it now, do it. And if you can't, don't worry about it.
And maybe that lines up with lead us not into temptation, because sometimes good things become idols and they get in the way of us experiencing blessings.
Yes.
And so for her, a good thing would have been college, but it got in her way because she made that a higher priority than the grace of God. And a good thing was his work and honoring his father, but he put that as an idol in his life and chased it too hard. So when we put things in the wrong place, then we can have everything fall out of place.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, there's nothing wrong with working hard. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with being a wife and a mother. And when your kids get to be a certain age, then saying, okay, I'm going back to work. And it's kind of what I was hoping to do one day, but it's not quite, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with any of that unless you turn that into some type of idol, some type of, or even, maybe almost an idol of regret.
True.
And his line was,
we don't realize we're turning it into an idol until it gets there.
Right. Yeah. Because, she, when he tells her that he's going to quit school, she's like, oh, Jackson, no. He goes, I was studying business anyway. So he's like he's just kind of cast it off, like, oh, well, so, and then he just dove in full force.
Mhm.
And there was that moment, if you remember, where he thought he was going to lose it all and he couldn't figure out what was going wrong at work. And for him, it was not just a matter of, I'm losing money at work. I don't know where it's going. It's I'm losing my dad's business.
Mhm. And losing me. That's
Yeah.
kind of where he was too.
Yeah.
Because he's
Yeah.
losing his father's business, he's losing
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
Because we can't put ourselves into something that isn't divine
Mm-hmm.
in origin.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's a good lesson for all of us. And, and I think one of the things that we talked about too last night was, the whole thing of do you purchase an ornament every year to commemorate the year? I used to do that with the kids. It's like, okay, this is your ornament for this year. And then when, you hit a certain age, you took all those ornaments and handed them to them and that kind of thing. But even as I was putting up our tree, and I put up 4 trees every year, but I was putting up one of the trees, it's called the family tree. And this is the tree where all the little ornaments that the children made or that somehow have something to do with the children, that's where it goes. And then my memory ornament for my mom, my memory ornament for my dad, and even each one of our dogs. Like I have a dachshund sleeping at my feet right now, and then I have the little doxy ornament, and then we've had beagles, and then we had a corgi, and so they all have their own little ornaments. But you put those up, and you start thinking about, the year she brought this home from school and gave this to me, and I'm so glad that I didn't just toss those in a box, that I kept them, the little popsicle reindeer and those kinds of things. I think that's a nice legacy that we can leave with ornaments.
mhm. It is.
As
And it's a
ornaments,
wonderful theme of your book is keeping and treasuring the good memories
yeah. Mm-hmm,
from our past and
mm-hmm.
making sure that we don't forget the blessings that we've been given along our journey. So,
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so in
Yep.
conclusion, what are some of the things that you hope for readers to receive as their gift from you from the Ornament Keeper?
Well, for one, I do want them to just enjoy the story,
Mhm.
but I also want them to look deep inside themselves. Is there anyone that you're holding a grudge against? Is there something that you perceived as truth that may not be truth? And even if it is true, there is a way to work around it. Sometimes this stuff happens, and we have to find the right spot for that stuff that happens.
Mhm.
And just, that if they could go into this holiday season with a new sense of joy and peace and forgiveness, because, that is why Jesus came. We know that Jesus was not born on December the 25th or the 24th or however you want to look at it. We know that that's not when he was born, but this is when we choose to celebrate the fact that he did come. He was the one who came. And part of that was he came to bridge the gap between God and man, but also to offer that forgiveness that he talked about in the Lord's Prayer. So, this is a time to not only allow Christ to forgive us to forgive ourselves, but us to forgive others. And it may be that there's just some little something that you're holding on to. You may not even know what it is. You may not even know you're doing it, but asking God to reveal that to you, he will reveal it and make it right so that you can go into this season whole and complete, because at the end, of course, like I said, they are a whole and complete family again. That's what I hope.
Thank you, Eva. I'm so grateful to you. And I hope that
Thank
all of
you.
the readers that are watching this, all the viewers that are watching this, will also take advantage of this opportunity to receive the gift of a magnificent story, the
No, thank
gift of deep truths wrapped in beautiful literature, that they will give themselves this wonderful gift of the Ornament Keeper, and they'll enjoy this Christmas season with a new perspective, including all the things that you just said so eloquently. And I thank you for joining us today.
Thank
I feel
you.
blessed that you're here, and I
Thank you so
pray that you
much.
have a wonderful Christmas with your family. And
Thank you. We are planning on it.
yes, good.
Yay.
Well, thank you. And
Thank you again, Tina.
on that note, we will end and say Happy Christmas.
Yes, yes.